here's a basic lesson on the meaning of square root. Let's start with a square. In math, when we talk about numbers that are squares, we're talking about numbers that represent the area of an entire square. The area of a square is calculated based on one side, which we could call S. And the area formula is S squared. If we think of the entire area of the square as x, then the function that we use to go backwards from the area to just one side is square root of x. So the root of any square number is the same as the side of a square. Now usually we don't see pictures of squares, we see numbers like this. Square roots of numbers fall into two different categories. Let's see what I'm talking about. The square root of 144 is just 12. It's a rational answer because this was a perfect square. Okay? Now the square root of 20 is not a rational answer. In fact, I can't express it with a fraction or even a terminating decimal. There's a few digits of this one, but since it's irrational, it's never going to end, it's never going to repeat. It's an irrational answer. These are the only two possibilities. Either you have a perfect square, which will give you a rational solution, or you have a number like 20 that's not a perfect square, and you get an irrational answer for that. Here's one that might surprise you. What about square roots of fractions? You might think that that's definitely going to be an irrational answer, but actually it depends what the fraction is. In this case, 4/9 is equal to 2/3 times itself. So the square root of 4/9 is actually 2/3 exactly, and that's a rational solution. So it just depends if this number is a perfect square, and fractions can be perfect squares. Let's look at something else. You will sometimes hear the terminology principal square root. A principal square root is the positive solution to a square root when it's pre-printed with the radical symbol. So if you're doing problems and there's already a square root symbol on the problem, we call that the radical. They're only asking for the positive result of square root of 25. Since 5 times 5 is 25, the answer is just 5. But look at this problem. If I ask you to solve for a and a squared equals 36, there's actually two different answers for a. If a was 6, we would get 36. But also, if a was -6, we would still get 36. So the answer is a is 6 or -6. Another way to write that is a is plus or minus 6, which means the same thing. So the basic difference here is if you see a pre-printed radical on the page, then that's the positive or principal square root that they're asking for. But if you take the square root yourself as part of solving a bigger problem, then you need to show both solutions. Sometimes in practical problems for distance and other things, the negative answer might need to be thrown out if it doesn't make any sense for what you're solving for. So there's some basics for square root, and now you're ready to watch some of the other videos about how to calculate square root.